Welcome back to another episode of College Football UK, and really excited because we've got the whole gang for this one, which is amazing. So, as I'm going to go in order of kind of what I see on my screen. So we have Sam. How are you, Sam?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Just plodding along as always.
And we have Nick. How are you, Nick?
All good, thank you.
And we have the man that everybody's clearly been waiting for,
Just
the
the
man who's
face of
garnered
college
all the
football.
attention this week. Gary, how are you, Gary?
I'm doing very well, man. I'm doing very well. Nice to see you all, boys. I'm ankle deep, I suppose, or almost knee deep in a load of fantasy football drafts this week, but it's been fun.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So, they might appear differently on your screen for you, depending on how. I don't know how this is going to end up being shown to me as I download all these recordings. They all normally end up in a variety of different orders. But let's get going. So, like the last couple of weeks, going to rock through a couple of pieces of news. Then we're going to get our brains going a little bit. I've got my trivia question for the week, and I hope you're all ready. I hope you've been researching college football fun trivia facts for the last 7 days just so you're ready. But so to start off with, there has been a leak as of the day of recording, Friday, from the PlayStation Store, and it's the one we've all been waiting for. The cover of the deluxe edition of the College Football 25 game has been put out on the PlayStation Store, and a screen grab of the game which shows Notre Dame lining up in the
Mhm.
tunnel, ready to go out. Now, I know we spoke about this in the group chat. How excited are we now? We've seen the real thing, kind of.
Starting to see the renders of it. It looks pretty damn good, doesn't it? Especially that sideline from the tunnel view of the fighting Irish getting ready to go to march onto the field and stuff. Like that's like ooh, tingles.
Yeah,
Well,
it's going to be the only thing that I'm concerned is that it's going to impact Madden, and we might not get a Madden this year, which is kind of sad. But I suppose if it's going to mean that they've piled more into the college game this year, then maybe it might be that it's the college game might be even
yeah.
better. So it's just a shame that you might end up not having a Madden, but.
Oh,
Um,
sorry.
I've, as some of you may have noticed, I've kept quite quiet regarding the PlayStation stuff because I barely have time to play the thing. I have a PlayStation.
Fair
I have a
enough.
PlayStation downstairs, and it has all of 4 games, and it's barely ever turned on because I'm so busy. So, yeah. So while I appreciate
Fair
that
enough.
everyone's getting excited, and yes, it does look really good. The chances of me having time to play it are highly unlikely. So, yeah, great, brilliant, well excited.
I think going back to what you said there, Sam, about Madden, it's just like I hope in a way it's not like Madden because you do have to kind of invest a lot of time in Madden to get there. Whereas I hope that the college game is a bit more, as you say, Nick, for those guys who love college football, just want to grab the controllers, play a few games, play a season, whatever else. Don't have to do quite so much on that sort of trading cards and getting the right sort of teams. I kind of hope it's a bit more
Yeah.
raw and a bit more like here's your team, get on, let's go.
Um. Well, from the little bits of news I've heard it's completely different. Developing like the developing team making this game is different to the team that develops Madden, which hopefully means it's going to have a few change ups. It's maybe coming at it from a different angle, which would be very nice. As I know, many of us who played Madden for a while have been getting increasingly frustrated with the game. Um, and the other thing I have heard about it is I've totally
Kind of,
forgot what else I've heard
I
about
think
it. It was
I heard
probably
something
made
that
up.
was like it was like some commentary teams. They almost like iteratively learn things, and depending on
Yeah,
how your plays are going, they change the way they commentate on it, or they change some of the
yeah,
things. It's almost like there's got some iterative learning in this, which is pretty impressive. Because Madden's a bit flat. You play your game, you
yeah.
play your skill levels, and that's it. It doesn't tend to tweak too much.
Yeah. Oh, that was it. If I don't know how long you've been playing Madden for, but I know Madden. What would have been Madden 13 because it was the 25th anniversary of Madden. They called it Madden 25, and this year would be Madden 25. So the potential that they might at least take a year off because they may not know what to call the game because they can't have two Madden 25s might be a real possibility. And I believe that.
And it wouldn't.
That's news for a different day. Anyway, the
We'll
other
talk about
little
that
bit
later,
of,
will we?
we will. We'll talk about that later. The other little bit of news that I had, and this was quite fun, I kind of left this a bit cryptic as we were getting ready for the episode. I found this real fun. You might have heard it already, you might have not. Arkansas Razorbacks have signed a walk-on wide receiver this week. Now, this isn't normally incredible news. A walk-on wide receiver for the Arizona Razorbacks. Not something you would hear of.
Is this the baseball player?
This is
I
Monte
read
Harrison. Monte Harrison, who, when he finished high school, he committed to Nebraska. Love
Already
it.
on my notes, look.
So when he's on his notes, look at that. I'm going to
Love
show
it.
my notes because I obviously do note taking for this. Seems like I said Nick's going to hang up now. It's like, right. That's his whole point. That was all he had.
I had that. That's one of mine. Oh.
Well, I was going to say, Monte, it's really interesting. I think it's really fun because, one, when he was 18, I think he was 18 when he was leaving high school, he originally committed to Nebraska for football, but then he got drafted into the MLB by, is it the Milwaukee
Bruins.
Bruins?
That's the one.
Brewers.
I've been getting into baseball this week, but I'm not quite there yet with anyone other than the Detroit Tigers. So
Trust you, your geographical spread is keeping it.
I told you I'm lazy. I told you I am lazy. And
Detroit, Michigan, Detroit.
You can't actually get any lazier than this because it's literally across the road. So, but Monte Harrison, who did not use any eligibility years before he got drafted by the MLB, will be a freshman walk-on wide receiver at the age of 28. That's
So
a
he's
fun
got
one.
4 years of eligibility.
Yep. And he's 28 years old.
There you go.
I mean, the NIL on that guy must be through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be the oldest if he ever gets drafted in the NFL, will definitely be the oldest ever drafted player in NFL history.
A
Surely,
rookie NFL wide receiver, age 33.
I say, look, at one point in the draft, in maybe 2 years, 3 years, whatever, you've got to look at a point and go, in the 7th round, why not just to have that on your team?
Mr. Irrelevant. Mr. Irrelevant
Yeah.
2020
Yeah, Mr.
or
Irrelevant.
2030 or whatever. Yeah, 2028. It'll be him. He'll be like.
It gives you vibes. It gives you vibes to that Eli Manning video when he wore that fake face and nose and all that mask where he came
when he tried to go to the
30-year-old quarterback, and they were like, everyone was like, oh my god, have you seen this guy? I'm tempted to get
guy's
this
pretty
thing. And
good.
they had to come clean at the end.
Yeah.
And it was actually Eli Manning.
Yeah, he was going to try to walk on to college or something. I saw that. It was like, kind of funny. But yeah, it'd be interesting now because, I mean, it's been a while since we had a dual sports person drafted in both drafts, isn't it? I can't remember the last. Was Kyler Murray? Was he drafted by the baseball as well?
I'm
I
not
don't know if he was
sure.
officially drafted, but I know that he was definitely linked to go
high,
and
wasn't
join
he? He was
someone.
high.
Yeah,
He was
same
potentially
with
gonna go
Mahomes,
high.
wasn't he? Mahomes was similar because
Kyler Murray's rights are owned by the Athletics. The Oakland,
the Sacramento A's, wherever they are. No,
Yeah.
Soon to be Las Vegas, but I think at the moment Sacramento
Oakland
A's.
A's. I was watching them yesterday.
So,
that's the only reason I know.
You were watching the Sacramento.
They own Kyler Murray's baseball rights because they drafted the rights. They gave up a pick or something stupid just to have the rights to Kyler Murray if he ever turns around and says, I want to play baseball. So, that was probably a Brad Pitt move.
Probably a
Probably.
Moneyball motion. Yeah, definitely in this. It could make them a fortune if he ever does pick up a bat and puts a.
And I just thought, normally, like I say, normally a walk-on at Arkansas is not news and would never
It's
even
not
be
making the
spoke
news
about,
anywhere,
even
is
by
it? Nobody
accident.
cares. Even in
But-
Arkansas.
Exactly. But I just thought it seems to be quite fun news that a 28-year-old freshman who used to play in Major League Baseball, he barely played. I think he made like 32 hits in his career in 9 years and spent most of it in the minors. But I just think it's brilliant.
It's a great story.
So-
It's a great story. That's what I just
So-
a quick other thing before round up on news. Obviously, we talked last week about the legislation and suing and who's getting sued by who and whatever else. I just noticed that there was
Yeah.
a motion sort of raised by a couple of senators in the US to try and protect the NCAA. We talked about it last week that House v NCAA could completely destroy it. Seems like they're trying to counter it by saying, "Hey, look, we'll make a motion where it kind of protects you guys from all this legislation and getting sued by ex-players and stuff, because if that does happen, and as we talked about last week, this could be catastrophic for sports." So
Yeah.
it sounds like there's a bit of a give and take, kind of going, yeah, we get that we should do this, but if we open up the legislation door to everybody, the whole system could collapse. So it sounds like there's maybe, I hate to say common sense is being used because
Yeah.
it's the US justice system. But it sounds like there's a bit of back and forth going on. So that's quite an interesting little snippet as well.
Well, without doxing anyone or anything like that, I was having a conversation with a friend who's from the US over the last a few days ago about this all. I was just asking questions because they grew up with all of this, and again, they're watching a lot of this change at the same time as we are, but maybe with a little bit more pre-existing information to help them get through it. And one of the things that they were saying was, look, I think not that you want to make it a political issue or get politicians involved, but something needs to be, like Congress or someone needs to step in because it's getting a bit out of hand right now. And like you say, college sports as we know it could be imploded in 2 years. But moving on, so as we've done for the last couple of weeks, I want to get our brains flowing a little bit. So I brought my little trivia question of the week to you all.
God, if it's anything like last week's, we're in real trouble.
Oh well, can you tell? So I will accept as a collective. See how much of this we can get. There are three. In fact, no, there are four elements to this question. I'm the main one. Okay.
Get
Anyway,
your notepads out.
the longest winning streak in NCAA history was by which college, and how many games were they unbeaten for? And for extra brownie points, if we can get there, when the streak was from until, and who ended the streak? There's a lot to it, I get it, but
So first of all, starting with who it was.
Who it would be?
yeah,
Which
can you
team?
guess which college had has the official longest winning streak in NCAA history?
It's got to be somebody big, surely.
I'm thinking it's going to be either Ohio State, Georgia,
I was going to go with Alabama.
Alabama under Saban. It might have been a.
Well, I'll go with somebody else then. So what have we had? Alabama,
Georgia, Ohio State.
Georgia.
It's going to be, or is it going to be? Oh no, it's going to be like one of those.
Go on, I'll go where the
Midwestern-
wind blows. Go on, I'll go where the wind blows. I'll go Oklahoma.
Oh,
Don't know.
no,
Don't
I've got
have
a
a
feeling it's
Could be anybody.
Oh, it's going to be some.
So
Is it gonna be-
It's going to be one of those dodgy ones like Liberty that are
So-
not in the main thing, but they're playing in the
Toledo
league
or
conference.
somebody stupid
point
like
one. Nick has earned you point one. It was Oklahoma.
Get in. It's the Sooners.
I
Let's
only
go.
picked that one because they don't nick the other ones. Oh.
Oklahoma.
Now, can you tell me how long that winning streak lasted? How many games?
10 minutes.
It's got to be when you think. Liberty went 13-0, so it's got to be at least a season and plus.
I'm going to go 37 games.
Oh,
It's quite a long time. It's probably spans over three seasons.
3 and a bit seasons there. Are we including bowl games here, or are we just talking regular season games?
It's a great question. And when I have a great answer for you, I will bring it. But as far as I know, this is officially... All I know is this is just classed as the official longest winning streak. Not active, I apologise.
Sam set the line up for 37, did you say?
37,
I'll take the higher, and I'll let lover boy, ladies man take the lower.
Oh, yeah, I'll go with about. I think I'll be at 28. I've got 2 seasons and a bit. But...
And 38 and above. I'm
colder.
going to take 38 and above.
Okay, so is that how we're doing this one? Sam gets one number out of thousands, and then you get anything under.
Sam said that was it. So that's it. Nick's got the over. So anything over than 37, Nick wins. But I can't imagine nobody's gone 3.
Sam sets the over under.
I get anywhere from 29 to 37 because that.
Yeah. Okay, I'll let you know that.
Said 28.
So I just thought we were setting the over under here.
Hang on, I'll let him have a few overs. I'll go 40 and above. I'll let him have a few overs.
You good. Oh, look at you.
So,
what a concession that was.
Anything in the 30s. Anything in the 30s, Alan.
20s, 30s, 40s. Okay, we'll go 20s, 30s, 40s. One of you is right, and that would be 2 out of 2 for Nick. It was 47 games.
Give over.
Oh, I got the 7.
Yeah, we'll let you have that one.
That's almost 4
Get half a
seasons. Wait, well, I suppose... because there's 13 games a season now, but maybe there were less before, but that's a lot. That's 4-5 years?
It depends if they include the playoffs, then you could be looking at another 3, 4, can't you?
So... Wow. Can you give me a rough idea?
When was Oklahoma? When was Oklahoma top of the pile?
I don't know. I'm going to quit while I'm ahead.
I would take a hazard as a guess. So I've got them all wrong so far, so why not add another one? Sometime in the 80s.
No,
I think late 70s. I've got a feeling late 70s. Actually.
Also,
this is probably one of those 19 pre-war. This is probably going to be pre-war because there was only
Depends on the
12 teams and
So it's in between the First and Second World War.
Not necessarily, but there have been multiple wars spanned. There have been multiple wars spanned throughout the last 150. You're always between some war at some point.
Most people tend to think pre-war is pre-World War II.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you
1950s.
Okay, there we go. I was going to say I was going to give you both a clue and say it was after World War II. And you are right. It's in the 50s. You've got the right decade.
53.
So
that was the start.
53 to 57?
Correct. 53 to 57. So Nick quit while he was ahead. Sam gets 1.5 because apparently he gets half a point for guessing the number 7 within the number.
What do I get for winning?
Hang
on.
Question. Hang on.
There's a fourth part of the question. Only Sam could take this off you now. Who was the spoiling team? Who ended the run?
Longhorns.
It's got to be the Longhorns.
It was worth a guess.
It's worth a shout because of the rivalry, right?
Yeah.
50, 57.
The Seminoles.
Nope. But keep on where you're going with this. Keep on where you're going.
Gators.
No, it's got to be the Fighting Irish then.
It was the Fighting Irish.
Yeah.
Notre Dame ended the streak.
Yeah. The independent Notre Dame.
So
57.
the longest winning streak in NCAA history was Oklahoma between 1953 and 1957, where they went 47 games unbeaten, only to be foiled by the Fighting Irish themselves.
There you go.
Will be
In the
interesting to know if
list,
that does count for bowl games and playoffs, though, or if that's just regular
Yeah.
season. The easy way of
So-
finding out is NCAA champions between 53 and 57. If Oklahoma won them all, then they won everything. But anyway,
the list that I've got up, I think, is up to the 25 longest winning streaks, and obviously this one's at the top. The latest one within this list of 25 was Georgia between 21 and 23. And they went 29 games unbeaten.
that was a good team.
That was. So, with that out the way, finally, we got there in the end.
Nice and quick.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Congratulations, gentlemen. Today's
I refer
episode
back to
is
my previous question. What do I win?
Yeah.
a round of well done.
Well done, Nick. Well done for getting.
Um,
Well done for pulling Oklahoma out of somewhere.
off a list. Oh.
Yeah, and also well done for initially going for anything above 38. That was also just a genius
that
move.
was like well done. Basically, it's Sam's fault basically for kind of just drawing the line there.
I jumped into it.
You should have waited for somebody else to answer.
So today, we spoke about it a little bit last week. If you listened, and you might remember Gary, Nick, and I talking a bit about the transfer portal. Most of you who listen probably only remember what Gary said because, as we've already previously mentioned in this episode, Gary got all the love this week.
All the love for the Seminoles out there, baby. Seminole Nation.
None of us were jealous either. Neither me nor Nick are jealous.
No, not at all. Much. It's
Um,
because I go full out and I bring the Seminole sort of feel, cap, jersey, the whole lot.
Yeah.
You guys have got to up your game a bit.
I agree. To be fair, that's a very fair point. But this week we're going to talk and go a bit more in depth into the transfer portal. Now, because of who we are and what we are trying to do with this podcast, what we're going to do is we're going to tell you a little bit about what the transfer portal actually is before we get into a bit more of the kind of what's gone on over the last few weeks within the transfer portal, things we'll look at, transfers that we like, and also remembering that Sam did not get to participate in this conversation last week, so we would love to have Sam's thoughts on what's gone on around the transfer portal over the last few weeks, because I know you've had quite a few interesting thoughts on some of the transfers that have happened, some of the recruiting that's happened. Actually, I think not just transfer portal, but this is just a lot about how colleges bring players in to their campuses and onto their football teams. So the number one way that colleges have done it historically is high school recruiting. Sam, I know, is this something you want to kind of lead us into a little bit to talk a bit about high school recruiting and what kind of the idea is around high school recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a case. I suppose there's obviously most people tend to see that the bigger colleges, shall we say, tend to have the wider breadth of schools or high schools that they go and visit and will go and recruit players from. Obviously, with the nil introductions, obviously that becomes a big pull, especially again for the big teams. You tend to find that more the local team, the colleges that are local to high schools, they will look around there first. Obviously, look at their local talent, and then they'll start to branch out. You've also got, as well as part of it, is people who people who have family who have been to different colleges will also go to the same college. So you almost find that a lot of schools have, no matter where that high school is, if you have a family member that went to that college, it's likely you were going to get recruited, especially if you were a particularly decent enough talent. So yeah, that's sort of, I suppose, how college tend to do their recruiting. And like we say, it can happen over a number of years. This isn't something that just happens when we know people are going to be joining that year. This is sort of 2, 3, 4 years in advance that they'll be picking players and recruiting them and chasing them and convincing them that they must join this college because we're going to offer you the best, and all the scholarships that come along with that. I have sort of
Just on that, like, I'm just curious, because this is all that end of it is also still, unusual for me and pretty new. You do wonder if colleges then that are in a more populated area have, because there's just by sheer weight of number, there's more people playing
Yeah.
football in the local area, therefore there's more talent pool to choose from. Does that kind of give teams in the Michigan area, for example, which is like a massive metropolis type thing, does that give them an added advantage to teams like, and just like the Longhorns, who, yes, Texas is a massive football country, but it's huge. It's also enormous. So does it mean that they're spread out a lot more? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just the thought
I
process
mean,
I was having there.
whether there's 2 or 2 million people in Michigan are just built different. I mean, that's just how it goes. It's just how the cookie crumbles, my friend. Just built different.
Yeah, we know we know all about the build quality of Michigan.
Oh yes, we do. And but one thing I actually think is really interesting. Again, sorry, Sam, to kind of keep you from what you were going to say. But as you talk about families, if anyone has watched the movie Blindside, this was a big part of the movie Blindside, and why the young gentleman in the movie got in trouble was because when the family took him in, they felt like, because of the rich tradition of sons going to the children going to the same colleges as the parents and things like that, and it being a rich tradition passed through the families, that this young man was being taken in a way to kind of try and coerce him to go to a specific college, which is it looks into that kind of thing in the movie Blindside. So I just thought it was an interesting
yeah.
kind of
You do tend to see, and I think this is where you get. I mean, you've got even the links. I know that this wasn't through high school, but you've got the links of obviously Sanders, and so that there's always going to be these family links, and especially as we've mentioned before on previous podcasts of this, a lot of families do end up being donors and supporters of that college and do funnel some of the money that they earn through the college. So it becomes I suppose what we might class as an indirect backhander to sort of say, well, here, this is we're
Hey, my
giving you all
son's
this
coming.
money.
Yeah, yeah.
My son's about to come out of high school. There you
Well,
go,
are they
sort of
called? What are
thing.
they called? They're not called, because in the NFL they're called legacy recruits, but I'm sure there's a name for them in college, and I can't. It's going to annoy me because I can't remember what it is now. It's not legacy, but it's something to do with hereditary or something like that, familial sort of recruits, and there is a portion of recruiting class every year is given over to, as you say, Sam, people whose parents went to the college. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah,
is it
yeah,
legacy preferences?
Yeah, there you go. Legacy preferences. Yeah.
It's legacy preferences. Sorry.
yeah.
No,
So
that's good to know. It was going to annoy me. It was one of those terminologies that will bug me if I didn't know what it was. But yeah, it's exactly like that. What you're saying, hey, your mum went here, your dad was whatever, or played for us, or your mum was a cheerleader. Your grandparents also went here, so you, as part of that, will get, if you wanted to come and if you were any good. And as you say, Sam, it's not just an open book going, hey, 3 generations of your family have come to this. You've gone to this college. Do you want to come and play sports here, even if you've got 2 left feet and
Oh,
can't catch a ball to save your life?
amid double checking what that term was, I have just read an article from the last couple of weeks. The Supreme Court has ruled that colleges have to end legacy admissions
there you go.
and can no longer do it. So there you go.
But they'll still find ways around it. They always do.
Oh yeah.
They
Got to be
won't call them legacy admissions. They'll just
They'll just
interesting.
have them up there saying that they're just another recruit, and then mention that in a million different ways that they are X's son.
Yeah,
Oh
won't be an
no,
official legacy
Sally,
though.
that's your son. No way.
Oh, I did not even realize. Even though your name is like the only family of that name in the whole state.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's interesting because that's always been, as you say, Sam, that's always been the traditional go out to your local talent pool of high school kids, find out or pick all the best ones and bring them through. So that's how the majority of college football sort of rosters are built.
I think obviously the increase in technology is obviously in recent years has played a massive part. I mean, the fact that you can watch, you can pretty much now probably find most of the top talents' high school tape are out and about there now. That's where that's the stage which we're at now in terms of recruitment, and that is people can go and watch them online, and that's probably where now I would say probably 50% of the intake that they look at probably comes from just online videos. Which is, it's the way things go, and you may as well use the technology around you if it's there.
It's kind of a break from that sort of. I suppose you think back the halcyon days of like the scout getting in his car and driving up and down the state and going visiting all these different high schools. That's probably gone now, as you say. They're all huddled around the YouTube videos or whatever else now, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, what I've done is just as a quick, just to sort of look at the 2024 draft or recruitment group
Yeah.
that have come through this year. I've just picked just to sort of give you an idea, because we obviously mentioned before about the big colleges being able to take the best recruits, and that's sort of what has happened this year with the draft. So the ones that I've sort of picked out have all gone to what you would say is the classic big teams. So obviously Georgia has taken, they've got Ellis Robinson the fourth, who is apparently going to be the next generational cornerback. They've also
Cornerback or
taken
quarterback,
corner,
right?
cornerback. There's Justin Williams, who's a linebacker, Bolden, who's a safety, and Chris Cole, who's a linebacker. So they've taken a lot of the big talent this year, which is quite interesting. Alabama did take 3 of the top talent, but one, as we'll probably end up going to talk about in the next section, has defected to Ohio, which is Julian Sayin, the quarterback. Again, another big prospect out of Ohio, along with Jeremiah Smith, who I know if you've done a lot of developmental fantasy leagues, you'll probably seen his name pop up a million times. You've also got the Gators have taken DJ Lagway, who's again an upcoming quarterback, and the Longhorns are much more famed on the defensive side this year, with Colin Simmons at defensive end and Kobe Black at cornerback. And then I wanted to end on a guy who I've sort of been following for the last sort of year and a half or so, in terms of seeing when he came out of high school and into college, who's gone to Nebraska. Again, this is sort of one of these legacy preferences, probably one of the last ones we'll see, which is Dylan Raiola. So obviously, Fletch, you'll have a particular knowledge of his father, Dominic, who's a Lions.
Yeah.
Is he a Hall of Famer yet, or is he just a legend in the
I think
game?
he's just a legend.
Yeah,
But also he
he's Matt
is
Stafford's
very, very
godson.
good friend. Yeah, but very, very good friends with Matthew Stafford, and his son is Matthew Stafford's godson. So
Yeah,
interesting.
and so Dylan coming out of Nebraska. There was rumors he was going to join. I think Alabama. He was going to join Georgia, and then he settled on joining Nebraska, where his dad went. And like we say, obviously, his godfather is Matthew Stafford, who's also, I would say, a Hall of Fame worthy quarterback. So,
Of course
yeah,
you would. No.
She would say that.
So would
She would say
you.
that. I'd
3
say
years
that.
ago you would.
I'd say-
Oh yeah, of course I would. But 3 years ago you wouldn't have said it, and I would have.
So yeah, he's probably what for me is going to be the biggest talent coming out of college in the next sort of 3 or so years. So anyone who's sort of who's just recently getting into the college game, who maybe wants to pick a lesser known team, Nebraska might be one just for that link, especially if you're a Lions fan, maybe picking up that link between
It's
Stafford and
interesting
that.
though. Going there. Just going using this as an example. As you say, the big colleges take the big names and whatever else. But interesting that he's gone to Nebraska. Probably he's got some sort of guarantee that he's actually going to get some playing time, rather than just be another body in a massive sort of football scheme. So it's interesting that it's not, because historically, if you've got a place at college, that was the place you went to, and this kind of segues nicely into where we're probably going to end up. If you got recruited to a college and they said to you, "Come play football for us. Here's a scholarship. We'll pay for your tuition if you come play football." That was it. You went there and you were going there. So it's interesting that the way things have changed now is that high school recruits and good ones or those with contacts and whatever else have the ability to choose. I mean, I suppose they've always had the ability, but it's always tended towards Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, because those were the big 3 or 4 that always got you into the NFL. Whereas now it's a bit more spread. So it's interesting that he's chosen the Cornhuskers. As you say, his dad
And
went there, so there's a link. But it's quite interesting
and
to
it's
see.
the reason why it's also interesting as well from the fact that he's last year in high school. He was at 3 different high schools. He was 2 in Arizona, and then he was at 1 in Georgia. So he was at Buford High School in Georgia. So obviously that's a big. I think that's where the
Football high
Georgia
school, isn't it?
link came in, with him being a local high school to the Georgia area. So yeah, he was. I think he even got Polynesian Footballer of the Year, Player of the Year in 2023 at Buford. So he's. I think there's a lot of sort of links in terms of his abilities and that. And I think from what I remember, Georgia was the big one that he was massively linked to, along with just having a quick look here. USC was the other big one, which obviously we know
Stanford,
the last person
Southern
that came out of
California.
USC, who's just come out, Caleb. So yeah, but to choose Nebraska, like we say, there must be some sort of incentives to go there. It may just be that he decided that he wanted to go there because of his dad, and it was just a family sort of thing. But the cynic in me just thinks that they probably offered him
Fair
plenty of
whack of money.
opportunities.
Plenty of opportunities, yes, and plenty of green opportunities out there in Nebraska and the cornfields.
I no, Nebraska are. I mean, what did they finish last season? Was it 5-7? I think it was 5-7. But Matt Rule is their head coach. You've got a former NFL head coach as your head coach in Nebraska. It's a good
Could have a
opportunity to
pull,
learn
couldn't
under
it?
someone who's done it at the highest level of the coaching tree.
I
Not
wouldn't
very
So
say
well,
he's
but
done
done it.
it. I wouldn't
He's
say he's done it. He's turned up and lost a lot.
He's
He turned
He
up.
knows how
That's
to
about
lose.
all
He
he
knows
did.
how to lose in the NFL.
but still,
But yeah, I mean, it could be the pull. It could be the pull. And as you say, it's interesting what you just mentioned there, though, Sam. I've not done enough sort of digging around there, but he's played 2 years here and then 1 year in Georgia. Do families kind of in the States who have talented kids and have prospects, do they move for high school reasons to get into the catchment areas? I'm kind of thinking, do oh, I want my kid to play for Ohio State, so therefore we have to go and live in
They don't have
Cleveland.
to, though, do they?
No, I don't suppose
No,
they have to, but
without obviously, probably depends. I know that in obviously without knowing their background and everything else, there's big opportunities that can happen across like state lines for people just in general. Like they can go from one job to the next where they're crossing multiple state lines. And I think sometimes, families just move. It's just we're probably, because being from England, we probably don't think of like for us, yeah, a big move, like moving from say Newcastle to London is a big move. But realistically, in the grand scheme of things, compared to America, it's a drop
it's
in the
just that. It's
ocean.
just like
So,
it's just like a short drive down the road, isn't it?
yeah.
yeah, I want to say
So,
on next week I'm going to Wales. It's going to take me two hours or so to drive. I'll be in a different country officially, and they aren't even out of the state by that point. So,
Half the time they're not even out of the main city of this Houston.
what were you going to say, Nick? Sorry.
I was just going to say Tristan Haynes. He had offers from Georgia, Oklahoma, Alabama, Texas. He had pretty much the top 10 colleges all offering him a scholarship, and he's chosen to go and play at Oklahoma. Now he's I'm not sure where he lives, but when you think about the fact that he's had all those colleges all over everywhere, offer, and I think he's like he's one of these all American, top prospects
all
out of
kind
high
of,
school. He's, he's he's going to play in that high school bowl that's coming up. You know, where the top 100 prospects of all the high schools play, and yeah, he's considered like a 4-star recruit or whatever. But he had offers from all over everywhere, but chose Oklahoma, and I don't know the reason, but you know,
This
so
I
segues
mean,
nicely into potentially one of the reasons what the new, as you've talked about, transfer portal is all about now, Fletch.
yeah. But sorry, just what I did have something I wanted to say on high school recruiting. Then I did have, and it's gone. It's not a
Talk about
good
it
day.
later.
Not a good. Yeah, we'll talk about it later. Damn right we will. If I remember it, I will come back to it. But as you are right, we are on to the transfer portal. The transfer portal. Before we get into, I think, breaking down a bit more of the transfer portal, for those of you who don't know, for those of you who are new to college football, let's give you a little bit about what the transfer portal actually is. Now, the transfer portal itself. Have you ever said a word so many times that it loses meaning in a short space of time? Transfer portal for me there. Whole thing's just lost meaning. I said it that many times. That's my Colts. Sam will get what I mean there. So the transfer portal is a glorified spreadsheet. At its core, that is what the transfer portal is. Previously, throughout college history, student athletes have been able to transfer schools, but it has been notoriously difficult. I think there was research. I was doing a bit of research before and found I think you had to go up through at least or up to 4 different hoops that you may have to jump through before you can get transferred, and even then, you might not be transferred. A student athlete would have to at first approach their head coach. If their head coach said no, then they could either say, okay, fair enough, or they could go and approach their athletic director. If their athletic director said no, then, for the rest of these, if they say no, you could just say, okay, no worries. If the athletic director says no, you can then go to I think it's one of like the head people within the college,
The dean.
or someone quite help. Yeah, I think one of the deans or something. You could go up to them within the college and make a request. If they said no, then you could get it taken to a panel where you could then request to get put on. If they say no, you're buggered. It's not happening. But most of the time, I feel like when I was listening to a lot of people talk about it before, it was very rare that they turned around and went, no, you have to stay in this exact spot for the next 3 years. This was rare, but the transfer portal came along to change a lot of that. Now all you have to do is go up to a specific member of staff and just make the request. They will then put you up. It can take up to 48 hours to get all your documentation uploaded, but that will I believe it has all of your academic results and whatnot, everything needed for colleges to know your academic status, all your eligibility requirements, and all of that sort of stuff. Your name gets put on, your details get put on, and head coaches, athletic directors, and coaches across the country can now see your details and see that you are available for a transfer. Now, I could go in and let's break down what the transfer portal looks like, but what's the point? That's not the point of this episode. But this means now that instead of it taking up to weeks or up to days to get your name even into the transfer portal, it can take maximum of 2 days. Within those after that 2 days, it used to be a case of your name goes out there into the transfer, into other colleges, stratospheres around wanting to be transferred, and even then it could take days for one college to get in touch with you and then you to get back in touch with the college, and a lot of these things were being done by fax, or these documents were being signed and then sent via email. scanned and then being sent via email. This was taking a long time. So this was basically a glorified spreadsheet where everything was in one place and colleges could all look at it. Scouts, head coaches, athletic directors. This was for nothing more than saving a lot of admin time. However, with all of these changes to the way that these things are processed, this has come up with a lot of new rules and things around what can be done around transfers, who can be transferred, and when they can be transferred. Now, there used to be a rule where someone could transfer, but they could only transfer once within their whole college career. That has now changed, where you can transfer as many times as you want during your time in college. You do not. It used to be that if you transferred within the academic year, you had to sit a year, even if it was before the season had started, you had to sit a year out, and then you could play the year after. That is no longer the case. As long as you don't transfer midway through the season, you're fine. If you do transfer
You
midway
suit
through the
up and
season,
go the
you might
next
have to
day.
sit out. You have to sit out the last few games of that season because you can't play for two colleges in one season. But other than that, you're okay. You can go pretty much straight away. You still, as Sam was talking about a couple of weeks ago, there are academic requirements that you must meet prior to being eligible to go into the transfer portal and all of that sort of thing. But these are the basic rules around the transfer portal, a lot of which have changed over the last couple of years. Like I say, such as the amount of times you can be transferred and having to sit a year out. So,
Yeah,
You
I
could.
think it's the
It doesn't.
non-sitting has made the massive difference, hasn't it?
It's
yes,
also as well that you don't have to um, request to be put on the transfer portal. The college can put you on the transfer portal if
yes,
they don't particularly want you anymore. Obviously, we know of some of the, like, probably the big name that came out of Texas, who I still think he's not actually been taken by anyone, and especially with the new rules, he wouldn't be able to be put on the transfer portal now. And that was what was his name?
Like a wide receiver, wasn't it?
Yeah, the wide receiver. I've completely got his name.
He's been on the
Um,
portal for a year and a half or something, isn't he?
yeah,
So no
Ajayi
one's picked
Hall.
him up.
Ajayi Hall.
Jai Hall.
He definitely will not. I don't. He's not going to get picked up by anyone. And that he realistically he got put on. He got suspended indefinitely by Texas for various misdemeanors. To which he then no longer is with any college at all as of 2022. So he's been
Yeah,
on that transfer portal, shall we say, for 2 years. He ruined his life essentially.
yeah,
But I suppose the big thing is that it'd be interesting to see how that plays out, because obviously a lot of teams would put players on the transfer portal if they got into trouble. Now the fact that you cannot be suspended, you cannot have any misdemeanors and misconducts at the college that you're at as part of your agreement, with these new educational rules that have come in. So it'd be interesting to see what happens, whether people will get rid of them and not put them on official misdemeanors, but will put them on the portal instead, or whether they will
Whether the
simply
portal
just
becomes, the portal becomes a form of punishment for whatever's going
yeah
on. Well, we've heard that you've been a bit naughty around campus doing something, whatever. You're on the portal, you're out of here, rather than the police are involved or whatever else. So that'd be interesting if that's used in that way. But yeah, I suppose, as you mentioned there, Fletch, that not sitting for the year and as I mentioned before, you used to go to one college and that's where you would go, no matter how good, bad, or indifferent the football team was, you would play for that team for your college life. Now there's a feeling that's, I'm picking up from, I'm sure you're listening to the same sort of podcasts and stuff. There's a feeling where players are kind of getting recruited and going to a college and then sort of going, I don't like it here. I think I've got a better chance somewhere else,
yeah,
or the coach has said I'm going to be third choice cornerback. Therefore, I'm going to go. Oh, no, I'm not going to fight for that. I'm not going to accept that. I think I'm entitled to play somewhere higher up on the depth chart. So I'm going to put myself on the portal. So there's an interest. It's definitely changed. It does have a feel of a. I suppose, as you said, it's got a feel of a little bit of free agency, transfer deadline. I suppose it's empowering to the students more, the student athletes
Yeah,
more. Shall we? Let's remind ourselves, as you say, Sam, when you broke down the rules, they are still student athletes. So there's an empowering of the students as part of this portal, but it is definitely in flux. I think it's not settled down at all, and some colleges are utilising the flexibility of the portal to their advantage a lot more than
yeah.
others.
Um, well, one thing that is important, so as you mentioned transfer deadlines and transfer windows, there are two windows throughout the college football season in which you can put your name into the portal. But the difference being between a trade deadline and a transfer deadline is, as we all know, that is the deadline for when teams can sign a player. You can bring a player in during this period of time, and actually within college sports, that is the window in which you can enter your name into the transfer portal. Oh,
Thanks for that, Gary.
okay.
Yeah.
Cheers, Gary. Um,
Couldn't help it. Sorry.
this
Countdown is on. Yes, sorry. Transfer
this
portal. Names,
yes,
enters.
this is the window in which you can enter the transfer portal. Exiting and signing for another college is totally within you can do that at any point, which is why it's important to note that you might be able there's a spring transfer portal that ended this year about a week or so ago. We mentioned it on the last week's pod that it had ended during the week in the few days before. This is just for players to enter the portal. Players that have entered are still in there and can be taken. They can be taken throughout the year, as you've mentioned there previously, Sam. There was Ajayi Hall has been in there for a year and a half. He could get taken at any point throughout the year. It does not have to be within the windows. This is, like I say, simply just for players listing themselves for eligibility. Now, when you talk about certain colleges utilising it to their advantage, and you talk about certain players using maybe the unlimited aspect of it to their advantage, there's a lot of players in a lot of different situations in which it opens up, I guess, in a very strange way, how you can go about having a college career and making a career out of your college. You can go to a you have a load of committals on the table. You have a load of offers on the table from, say, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, USC, Texas Longhorns, FS. You have all these massive schools with loads of offers for you, and you have a couple of slightly smaller ones as well. But you say, do you know what? Actually, I'm a freshman. I'm going to go to Alabama because why the hell not? That's the biggest school, potentially get a decent NIL deal while I'm there. But actually, if I go there and I perform well and I work my way up the ladder at Alabama, all the NFL eyes are looking at me. That's where my career is going to go. A year in, and you're thinking, maybe this isn't quite for me. I'm going to go to a school slightly lower down the pecking order where I'm going to be a bit higher up the chart so I can go get in some reps and I can actually get some playing time. So you do that. You do really well at that school, and then you go, right, okay, now the schools are on notice. I'm going to go over to Georgia now because they see what I'm doing, and this is a whole thing of how you can kind of, like you say, Gary, you used to be able to, once you committed to Boise State, unlucky son, you're at Boise State in 4 years. The opportunities that you've got are now going to be not great unless you ball out. But actually now you can very much kind of play a game and a long game
You
with
can,
this
couldn't you? And you
transfer
think,
portal stuff.
as a true freshman who knows maybe you're not going to play, but if you go and learn for a year under a coaching system at one of the big colleges, right? As you say, one of those top 5 or 6 that everybody knows, even if you don't get on the pitch, right? Even if you don't get on the field, but you're under that coaching, you understand, you learn how it all goes about. And then you put yourself back in a portal after a year at Alabama, and then you get picked up by some Midwestern, conference
Yeah,
team out there that says, "Come and be our starter." We can guarantee you've had a year there at Georgia, a year at Georgia where you've learned the ropes and you know what's happening. We think you're better than everything we've got. You come and be our starter for this year. All out. Suddenly, you're then, you've had 2 years. You've still got 2 years of eligibility left, and then teams will be coming looking for you rather than you looking and scrabbling around for them. So it
Yeah.
definitely will change the way the pathway of some players. Maybe some of those obviously 4 or
Yeah.
5 star recruits are going to go big colleges, play
Yeah.
straight away. That's not going to change. But for those other potential, student athletes who maybe don't have the best time at high school, but have got a bit of talent, and then suddenly go, have a growth spurt, suddenly get more athletic, bodies fill out, and whatever. Suddenly, year or two of college, there's suddenly defensive linemen or edge players who have the bulk and the speed and whatever else, but they never had it at high school because, hey, they didn't quite fill out in time. Those players are going to still have the opportunity that maybe they wouldn't have had 10, 15 years ago because, as you say, you end up at a lower level college. They're not really looked at by NFL scouts. The chance of you getting through is very slim. That might widen the pool of NFL talent that's available.
Right, at that point, apologies, gents. I have to bounce.
Sorry,
I
Nick.
will leave you guys to. I'll leave you guys to hold the fort.
Thank you.
I will see you all next week.
Leaving on
See
a
you
high,
next week,
yeah,
Brent.
take all the winnings and leave. I see how it is.
Yeah, I'm going to take my win, my 2 points, and I'm gonna go and cash it in for something.
Mic drop and bounce.
Have a good week, gents.
We will be in
Good.
touch
Have a good
before
weekend.
Friday.
Stay
Yeah. So, I think it is such an interesting thing, though, that all these different changes, and we've seen guys who have, say, gone to a college in January and transferred to a college in January, turn up, and then go in February, go, do you know what? I'm not actually a fan of being at this college. I don't actually like it here. The weather's not great. The campus isn't great. There's not that much going on.
Coach has changed.
The
I
coach
committed. I
changed.
committed to this coach, and he's gone and worked over there now. And suddenly, it's
And all of a sudden, and then a few weeks later, they're back in the spring transfer portal, and a bit like maybe they played the spring game as well and thought, I'm not a fan of this.
That's what I'm
system.
hearing. Yeah. What's interesting is a lot of that's happening, and a lot of that's in the podcast and sort of the talking heads are kind of going. So you played one spring game, which for those not in the know, the spring game is like an early preseason work for the college game, but it's a set. It's not just a game; it's a set of practices. It's a set of everything else. It's kind of I think it's about a 2 week window where you practice, you scrum it, do all that, and then there's a game at the end of it. So it's not just a game for 1 minute. It's not just one game. It's a whole set of practices and stuff. And a lot of players have kind of done spring game, and then they've suddenly gone, right, that's it. I'm too far down the list. I don't like this, don't like that. I've entered the portal, which a lot of talking heads, a lot of podcasters, and a lot of people who have followed college football longer than many of us seem to be a little bit in disagreement or finding that a little bit hard to swallow. But it's just the way of the world now. I think they just have to kind of catch up with. That's what the transfer portal allows these players to do. They are in control of themselves now. If they've gone through spring games and the coach has gone, sorry mate, you are our 4th string running back. That's what it's going to be. You're only going to get any playing time. Or either games are completely dead and buried, and there's nothing riding on it, or everyone's injured.
I think also you've got the interesting side of, like, say, I'm just going to use, I know we're going to come on to a couple of winners and losers in a bit, but just looking at like someone like Trayvon Henderson at Ohio or Egbuka, people who you expected to have gone in the NFL draft who chose not to, who chose to stay another year. That's going to obviously have a huge impact on maybe those who are like the understudies thinking this is my chance to get in. They've turned around and gone, nah, actually I'm going to stay in college another year. So you're sitting another year as 2nd, 3rd string running back or wide receiver or
You've only
any
got
other
2 years
position.
left of college. Your
you
chance of getting noticed.
Yeah, so you decide, well, actually, I need to make the move for me. So there is that as well, which I do think plays a massive part. And I mean, they don't have to commit to joining the draft until, is it February?
Yeah, I think.
So
something
teams
got a while.
like people have already committed to their particular college way before then to then find out in February, well, actually, I'm not going to be playing at all this year because they've decided they're not going to commit to the draft. To which then they get to spring and then they go, you know what, I'm going to find somewhere where I'm going to be the starter.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
one of
So
the things I
pluses and
think,
minuses. It's going to be interesting it's going to take a while to shake out a bit because we've skirted around the edges, but there are Colorado Buffaloes. Deion Sanders went into Colorado and just went, this football team is just not good enough. Pretty
yeah,
much put the whole team on the transfer portal
yeah,
and just said, "You guys are out of here. I don't want you playing here. You haven't got it, and whatever else." And use the transfer portal for recruiting. Unlike, as you mentioned, something the high school and whatever else. I'm sure that's still there in Colorado,
Yeah.
but he kind of came in with a broom and just went, "You lot are out. I'm bringing in my son and all of his mates." Bit of nepotism, absolutely. Plus, absolutely hammered the portal. No doubt utilising come play for Deion Sanders as an incentive, but also you can't imagine that TV rights, other NIL options were made available to players going to play in Colorado because of prime time and all that sort of stuff. So, they are the ones who have absolutely, at the forefront of utilizing what the new transfer portal rules have enabled.
yeah,
They're not done anything wrong. They're by the letter of the law and what the transfer portal allows, they're absolutely fine in doing it. They just maybe have rubbed a few colleges up the wrong way by being quite so brazen about it.
yeah. I think as well though, that's what earned Shadar Sanders and Deion Sanders last week. The Twitter beef was the manner in which that was taken, and Xavier Smith coming out and saying, "Look, Deion Sanders, yeah, he is what he is, but what he did." I don't think it was that bad what he said, to be honest. I think it was just a case of, look, you could have just done it a little bit of a nicer way. You didn't just have to come in and say, nah, these are all crap, leave, the way he seemingly did. So the roads,
It felt very Jose Mourinho, didn't it?
yeah,
And it was very cut
and
and dried, wasn't it? It doesn't sound like there was a lot of personalised sort of approaches either. It sounds to me like the players who were then added to the portal found out
well,
by getting an email saying you've been added to the portal rather than a team meeting or anything else. But maybe
do
maybe
you,
that's just
do you ever
what
watch that
people
episode
know.
of The Simpsons where Homer's the head coach and there's that scene of him at the end and going, you're cut, you're cut, you're cut, you're cut, you're cut, you, all cut, go home, you're cut. And it felt like it probably was a bit like that. He just walks in and go, oh, you five over there, leave. You five over there, leave. Right, you can put them pads down. You're not allowed to touch them anymore. You can go home.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it was probably a bit along that kind of lines.
Yeah.
And another thing, I guess, with the transfer portal as well is the way that some teams, I guess, some teams are obviously going to have a much better time of, like you say, recruiting. Some teams just have more pull. But there's also, and we spoke about this a little bit last week, in the sense that this isn't necessarily going to be a good value and measure of success is how well your team does in the transfer portal. But some teams now have no choice or have very little choice. But one guy we mentioned last week, and I do want to bring his name back up because I've let it sit with me a little bit, gentlemen. And as much as you may not believe it, I have thought this through. I have used what little brain power I have left to actually think something
Bounced your
through.
brain cells around in that hollow.
I'm surprised you can't smell the rubber burning from there. And the what's his name? The quarterback from USC who joined the transfer portal and left after Caleb Williams left. He was QB2. What was his name?
He was highly thought of, wasn't he? And then Caleb Williams
Yeah.
came along, and he's just transferred out again, hasn't he? To has he gone to Oregon? No, he
Was it?
was.
No.
Somebody's got to find him
Well,
quickly. Yeah, it was quite a big thing, wasn't it? He went to USC, didn't
Yeah.
do so well in like a couple of games. Caleb came along and kind of took his place, and now he's come out
Well,
of USC, transferred away.
either way, Either way, what
Mm.
I'm to who, if you are listening and you are the quarterback who did it, I'm very sorry. I doubt you're listening, but if you are, I'm very sorry. I forgot your name. But for me, it's one of the things I've been thinking about this week is you, like you say, you would think right now that USC playing in a college like USC, playing under Caleb Williams, and then getting your chance at USC sounds like a golden opportunity. It sounds
Was it Malachi Nelson?
it might have been,
So he's left USC.
but I'm
Big
thinking.
prospect as well.
See, I'm thinking now though. USC are about to go into the Big Ten. You're about to play what is a bit of a different kettle of fish
Yeah.
in your Big Ten opponents. Your schedule is about to get a lot harder. You are about to and while the SEC has amazing offenses and amazing defenses, they produce talent on all sides of the ball. They have a much better offensive, I think, a better offensive conference than the Big Ten. But the Big Ten has always produced pretty good defensive teams, very good defensive teams. You're about to come up against a big two division, a top two division that predominantly produces defenses. If you're a quarterback or you're an offensive player going into a school that is about to transfer into one of these major conferences, do you think there's a thing going through their mind thinking, hang on, I could very well get my ass kicked for the next
Could get found
4
out. Yeah.
months. Yeah, I get found out by Sharon Moore and the Michigan defense, or Matt Rule and the Nebraska defense. You are in that position of where you could potentially be in a bit of trouble, and you aren't what you thought you were. Your tape is going to look a little bit worse. Do you think that this is a possibility that's running through a player's head and saying, let me go to a slightly different conference? I mean, I can't even remember where he went in the end. He could still be in the Big Ten.
Went to Boise State.
Oh, that was it. Boise State, that was it.
Yeah, well, it was.
That's an easier schedule for him.
Malachi or Malachi, however you say it.
Yeah.
Malachi, I think it is.
I mean, I listened to last week's podcast on the way home today, so I should remember it. I was listening to that bit and thinking, oh, I need to bring that up later. Your schedule's a lot easier at Boise State. You're not playing the same defenses at Boise State. Do you think that's playing a part in the mind, or do you think it is because that is a big football decision to make?
And it almost, I suppose, it's not. Yes, it's probably the decision making of, it's been a hard year and a half, 2 years. His confidence has been absolutely shot because he got, his job got taken away by this upcoming guy who's now the generational talent and whatever else and everyone. So from a playing perspective, maybe from a mental health perspective, he just needs to go somewhere where he can have nice, for 1 year, just win some games and get something nice under his belt. But
it's also interesting with him because obviously being in USC where he was, obviously being in California, he signed and just looking this now, he signed a nil deal with a Los Angeles-based hospitality firm shortly after the conclusion of his junior year. And then within the space of that time, he's then gone and joined a team or a college in Idaho, which is, it's not exactly the shortest journey between the two. So again, why give up what would arguably be quite a lucrative deal for the sake of, throwing your toys out the pram? It seems a bit, an odd move.
Or was it? Or maybe that deal and, maybe the LA lifestyle or that Southern California, maybe, for some college, remember again, these are only young kids, 19, 20, 21. Maybe bright lights and all that sort of stuff, too distracting, became too much of an issue. And that's why he's gone to Idaho where there is nothing.
I mean, But also, I think I want to be careful about, and I'm not calling you out here, Sam, don't worry. But I want to be careful about using like the term "throwing toys out the pram" is not one I want to kind of say I'm throwing. I think there is a difference here between seeing your backside and wanting out because something's not quite gone the way you want it to. I think I'm trying to get at here from my own perspective is, and it sounds like I'm saying he's taking the coward's way out. Oh no, big bad defenses. I want to go into, if you want to go into the NFL, mate, get used to them big bad defenses because that's who you're going to be playing. Unless you plan on being on a practice squad. Okay, fair enough. But those are big bad defenses.
But maybe that's maybe where he is now after the last couple of years of having his job taken and not being
it
there.
sounds like I'm accusing him of taking a coward's way out. I get that, but I'm also want to say like the tape that you can get on yourself, the numbers that you can put up, the ways you can go about certain things are a lot. You can make yourself look a lot better at Boise State going up against the teams against whatever. I don't know what their schedule is this year, but you can make yourself look a lot better than you would be going up against Michigan and Ohio State and Nebraska and USC and Washington, etc. and Oregon.
So just to give you an idea, Boise's schedule is, let's see, Georgia Southern, Oregon, Portland State, Washington State, Utah State, Hawaii, UNLV, San Diego, Nevada, San Jose, Wyoming, and Oregon State.
So Oregon is about the only team.
If he stayed at USC, he would have been playing. Just go through their schedule while we're on here. So their schedule: LSU, Utah, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Penn State, Maryland, Rutgers, Washington, Nebraska, UCLA, and Notre Dame.
That's a much tougher
much
schedule.
harder.
Much tougher schedule. And would he be guaranteed starting at USC this year after 2 years of?
He'd only sat for 1 year at USC. He sat up for 1 year at USC. It was Malachi Nelson. He was only drafted in 23, so he played one game all year for them, obviously behind Caleb. And I think there's another guy there who came in who's there as a sophomore, I want to say. And I think he may have been the guy that would have, is it Miller Moss, I think his name is? He was a junior, I think. He's the guy that's going to be potentially challenging him for his job. So maybe they made the decision that he was going to start. I mean, looking at their team, I mean, they've got quite a lot of QBs, to be honest. But you've got Miller Moss, Jaden Maeva, Jake Jensen, and Gage Roy are the 4 quarterbacks that are at USC this year. So they may have preferred someone like Miller Moss and wanted to start with him. So yeah, it
could be football reasons. It could be all sorts of reasons, and it's just interesting that especially for USC, because Caleb's just walked out the door and everyone's got their eyes on it. You would have thought for the opportunity to kind of step into those shoes and follow up, but maybe he's sensibly. I mean, it could be a very sensible move for him because the pressure to follow Caleb Williams must be immense. And, maybe he's gone, hang on, I don't want that. Yeah, mentally, I don't want that. Enjoy my football for a year because this is the last year I've got, or 2 years of playing football for fun. Maybe my NFL career isn't going to be the dream. I might just be a backup, but hey, I'm going to have some fun for a year and a half without that massive pressure of being the new Caleb Williams.
I think the big thing as well for Nelson, he came out of high school as a 5-star recruit, and now he's only a 4.5 star. So he's lost half a star just by sitting behind Caleb for half a year when people were expecting him to be a starter. So you could argue that maybe he's seen that and he thinks the pressure of, like you say, the pressure of sitting behind Caleb and then having to take over as Caleb's replacement. Maybe he thought, you know what, I'm going to go to somewhere like Boise. I'm going to make a name for myself as me, not as the guy that stepped up after Caleb. You never know. Like I said, we don't know what happens in these situations because we're not there to hear it, and we're not there to sort of. There's not the
Yeah,
same, media hype around this sort of thing as there would be, say, in the NFL.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
quarterback move in the NFL gets
Um,
massive. You know,
so, Sam, is there any particular transfers that have taken place within this transfer portal over the last few weeks that have kind of stood out to you in any way?
I mean, what I've done is I've kind of gone through team again. I've gone from like a
Okay, no, that's fine.
team-based thing.
Yeah,
So I've looked at
that's
the
fine.
sort of the winners and the losers. And I suppose, I mean, I'm happy to start with the losers because it's it's one of those where I think it's looking at the players that they have lost in the portal and the players that they've then also sort of picked up. I think that they're a massive. They've fudged up a bit. Is Alabama. I think the players that they have lost this year has been huge. I mean, obviously Caleb Downs, Isaiah Bond, Julian Sane was a big one. The next one of the next big prospects, QB
yeah,
coming out. Des Ricks, Amari the Black. These sort of they're big names, and it's not like they've gone to, like we say, like someone like a Boise State. They've gone to Ohio. Two of them have gone to Ohio. One's gone to the Longhorns. One's gone to two have gone to Texas Longhorns, and one of them has gone to Texas A&M. All teams that are probably going to be
going to
up
be
there.
up there battling and challenging, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah. So they're big players to lose, but also to lose them to big teams, I think is sort of the big thing, and that's why I've sort of put them as one of
And
the
you
bigger
wonder if that's
losers.
the Saban effect. You know, Nick
Hmm.
Saban retiring, legend, absolute, legend of college football. You wonder if him not being there is the reason why some of those players went to Alabama. And now he's not there. They're like, well, looking out for number one, if you like. Some of these other big colleges, bigger states, got better coaching or whatever else, got more chance there. I'm jumping ship. Maybe they don't trust the new guy. Maybe it's, I think it's going to be a rough time for the Crimson Tide because they've been so good for so long. And, now that coaching change has happened, I think they will have a bit of a transitional few years.
I mean, look, it's bound to happen. We've seen how many franchises have we, or even football, our football teams, have we seen this with a head coach or manager is with a team for a long, long time. A lot of people turn up because they want to play for him, and it
Hmm.
doesn't matter how good your next guy is. He's not the guy
It's
before.
not him.
He's
Yeah.
not his predecessor, and unfortunately, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And this is not in no way is it a shot at KDB. It's just simply a case of he's not Nick Saban, unfortunately, and you know.
Yeah. Anyone walking into that head coaching job at Alabama after Nick Saban, it's on a hiding to
It,
nothing. Doesn't
I mean,
matter.
to a certain extent, and I know we kind of said last week we need to stop with the full comparisons to this, but David Moyes walking into Old Trafford, it didn't matter who it was. At that point, especially in that situation, you're the scapegoat because you know it's not going to go well. So you just
It's
take
the
the person
same.
who you can
It's
fire
the
out of the
same
cannon.
thing. It's the same thing Arsenal had with Unai Emery. Great
Yeah,
manager, wrong time sort of
Yeah.
thing. It was
yeah,
always
yeah.
going to be that sort of situation. But I mean, they were sort of, for me, they were the big loser. I think another team that, and you might be able to give a bit more insight into this, Fletch, is I've seen a lot of news articles and that saying that Michigan was a big loss. Or were seen as a big losers, and I don't know again if we're talking about the Harbour effect, whether that maybe had a part in that.
I mean,
Um,
we lost a few. There was quite a few losses. I mean, you look at. I mean,
A lot of
Gary,
the, a
you
lot of
can
your guys
also
went to
speak to this.
a lot of
Yeah,
your guys went
you
to the
can speak
draft
to
as
this
well,
as
didn't
well
they?
because you had a similar experience with FSU and the fact that just a lot of guys left for the draft.
Yeah.
There's was it I think it was 18 Michigan players are on some form of NFL team in some way right now that were played last season. That's not a very good place to be. It to a certain extent, amazing for those young men who've gone out, won a national championship, and now get to go live the dream. Very, very happy for all of them. Go blue. But the problem you get there is you've just lost Jim Harbaugh. and I have a lot of faith in Sharon Moore. He did the job very well this season when put under the pressure when Jim Harbaugh was not around for reasons that we will
No doubt
remain
we'll touch on that
undisclosed
a little
and
later.
nobody will ever
Yeah,
know.
I'm sure we'll talk about
Nobody
that
will
on
ever know.
some
No,
other
we won't. No,
episode.
that one we will not. That one we will not.
Oh, not going to talk
We
about that later. Fair enough. Right.
no, not talking about that one later. No, but like it becomes a problem. Like I say, when you get someone like a Jim Harbaugh, Sharon Moore's great. The guys know him. He's been in and around the college for quite a while under Jim Harbaugh.
I wonder.
But at the same time,
It's not. It's still following. As you say, he's still following on. But I wonder if that uncertainty at Michigan meant that they're this year and the year and a bit of recruiting and getting out there and hitting
yeah,
the portal and stuff, whether or not there was a breakdown a bit because the continuity was uncertain, and at Alabama they knew Saban must have told, hey, this is my last year, blah blah blah, get ready, get prepared. Harbaugh was kind of like, no, he signed a massive contract, he was getting paid millions, he wasn't leaving. Then you had a whole hoo-ha last season, so everything was a little bit up in the air. So there was a bit of a chip on the shoulder for them winning the championship as we're going to win it anyway.
100%.
But the knock-on
Every
effect
year.
is possibly what you're feeling now with all those players leaving, not having a great transfer portal. But as you say, that might not necessarily mean anything because your recruiting class might be great.
Yeah, I mean, every year. I mean, it felt like for the last 5 years, I was constantly hearing from Michigan fan friends like, for Christ's sake, Jim Harbaugh's doing that thing again where he sits there and like kind of gets his phone and goes, NFL teams are calling me. Should I pick up? Should I not? Oh, I might pick up. I might not. Michigan give me more money. I might pick up. I might not. And he seemed to do that for year after year after year. And Michigan were like, no, please, for the love of God, stay. And Jim Harbaugh would say, well,
how much?
NFL teams are on the phone. One of you's going to pay me more. I want to be here, but I also want to go make a lot of money. So,
well,
and that's
he
the
was
one I'm going to
making
choose
a
out of the
lot
two.
of money at college.
Oh yeah, and I think there's a mix between that uncertainty that over Jim Harbaugh and where he's going to be and what he's going to do. That's been a thing for a while. But I think Michigan have always known that there's only so many times he's going to do it and then go, well done. Okay, you made the right decision. At one point, you're just have to bite the bullet and let him go. I think Michigan, with for in various ways, however, obviously all legally and some not, that they made sure that this roster was built and put together was to make sure that it was all put together so that they could have this one last year.
Win now.
It was built to
very much
the
a
best
win-now
way that they could get it to win a national championship for Jim Harbaugh because he was going to go. So they have an issue now with some of the tellings off and the slaps on the wrist they've got with some of the high school recruiting back in 2020, I think it was, during COVID when it was called Burgergate or something.
Met at the restaurant.
Everything was a gate back then. So you've got a mix between that. They just simply haven't, I don't think, dipped into the transfer portal very well. I mean, the highest prospect that they got in was that Jashawn Barham, the tackle, 4-star tackle, but lost a couple of 4-stars. And the big problem I think you've got at Michigan right now is who the hell is the quarterback? Who the hell is your quarterback? Ohio State have a similar issue, which is why I don't have Ohio State as my favorite. I would know it kills me as a Michigan fan to say this. Ohio State would be my favorites to win the Big Ten this year to get the Big Ten championship, but they don't even know who their quarterback is either, and that's a problem. So I think there are a couple of key issues that Michigan have got in house they just haven't addressed. And they haven't made an address for it in the portal, and they don't have the answer for it in house. I don't think right now, so that's a problem.
I think it's interesting that you've said that there's issues around Ohio because I've actually got them as one of the big winners of the transfer portal.
I mean,
purely obviously mentioning Henderson and Egbuka, keeping them for another year is a great thing, but they took on Will Howard, who is a quarterback. They got him. They brought in Judkins, who again, big player, running back to back up to Henderson. And they also brought in like I say, brought in Caleb Downs at safety and brought in
Yeah.
Julian Sain, who is a good, young prospect. So for me, I had Ohio as being winners in the transfer portal. Obviously, I know that in terms of whether they will then go on to win the whole thing, it's obviously another story. We don't know how Will Howard's going to sort of cope in that team, especially with sort of some of the players that are around him. They're going to probably lean on Henderson a lot and some of the other players there. But it's set up fairly well for the likes of someone like a Will Howard to go in and do pretty well. It's just whether he has all the pieces around him to help him do that. But I don't really know too much about Will Howard generally. I know obviously a bit about him. I know obviously he's at Ohio, but I don't know too much about him as a quarterback.
I mean, like I said, the only thing I know is from everything I hear around Big Ten, I try not to look at too much in-depth Ohio State news just because seeing the name and logo and whatnot makes me nauseous. And I don't like being nauseous. So, no, but I mean, like, looking around a lot of the Big Ten news, a lot of what I'm hearing right now is just that Ohio State, again, like I said, if they know who the quarterback is and they can say now, you're starting, day one, you're our starting QB1. That changes everything. Even just putting it down on paper for me changes a lot because I think there's that old saying of like if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. Why you leave too much? I mean, to a certain extent, yes, and to a certain extent, no. But like I say, if they put even if you just put it down on paper, we can say this is clearly the way you're going.
Yeah. It just makes everything.
They have had a great transfer path.
Everything that falls from that, as you say, having two QBs is great, but if they're two QBs, one's a pocket passer and one's a bit more use the legs, and then how do you scheme for both of them at the same time? You're going to lose.
Exactly.
It's not going to work. You need to kind of go. You're the guy, even if it upsets one or the other. You kind of have to because everything flows from that.
I think from what I can see here, I think because I think Will Howard is going to be the starter.
Yeah.
Like I say, that Julian saying
who's on the cover of
college,
who have they put on the cover of EA25 as the Hawkeye?
Some bum.
I'm going to assume that it'd probably be Henderson or Ibuka. They're not going to stick a quarterback on there.
They don't know who it is.
They wouldn't have.
Well, Michigan have put Edwards on there, haven't they? They're going to put their running back or something on there.
Yeah. Donovan Edwards or whatever it's called.
Yeah. But yeah, just as a horrible thing, I don't envision Florida State being the number one Florida team this year. The work that the Hurricanes have done in the portal is just, they've got I think Cam Ward's probably high up on there for the Heisman Awards, betting already, picking up the running back, Denzel, name's going to annoy me, what's it? Damian Martinez, 1,000-yard rusher. They've now picked up a wide receiver who's like 800-900 yards. They are weaponed up. They are going to be a nightmare on offense. So watch out for the Hurricanes. They have definitely nailed their spring portal. That's a worry from a Florida perspective. I mean, not from an ACC perspective, fortunately, but as a number one in Florida, it's annoying.
Why?
I do.
What's going on with the ACC?
I do think that the Longhorns, obviously, slight bias with that, but I do think they had a good portal, and I think they needed to because I think, did we see something like, was it 8 or 9 Longhorns prospects went in the draft, and a lot of them were the big names. I mean, they pretty much lost their whole wide receiver core to the draft. But again, looking at the players they picked up, I mean, the Black was a big one at tight end, Makuba, safety, Moore at edge, and Bond wide receiver. And if just having a look at their depth chart, their current wide receiver X, Z, and H are all brand new additions to their team. Wow. So and the tight end's brand new, and they're the number one starting players. So it's a whole brand new offense for Quinn Ewers to have to deal with. But at the same time, they're going to need it,
Yeah.
given the fact they've just moved to second. That division is way harder than what they were in before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the Texas Longhorns schedule for this season. There's a tasty one there, Sam. I think me and you could have a little bit of fun on one day. You've got Colorado State at home on August 31st. Then you've got Michigan away. You've got UTSA at home, ULM at home, Mississippi State at home. Then you've got Oklahoma away, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Oklahoma
every
away.
single year that we have that. That's
Yeah,
at the Cotton Bowl,
Yeah.
Georgia, Vanderbilt, Florida,
Florida.
Arkansas, Kentucky, Texas A&M. Those, like, to go through Oklahoma, Georgia, you got, like I said, with Florida in there, with Michigan in there, at Michigan as well. You've run yourself into a couple of difficult games there, and like I said, I think Michigan will still be very good this year, but I don't think
Yeah,
we're not a conference championship team this season.
Mm.
That's a difficult schedule that you're about to jump into.
yeah,
So you're going to need to
and
kind of, I guess, build up some of that because the SEC is a better it's probably the best conference
yeah,
in football.
yeah. So it'd be interesting. I think we're in for an interesting year. I think the Longhorns, because if that offense can click, and I know Ewers is a brilliant talent, and I think if we can click on offense, you know, I think we'll be fine. It's just how well will he, build that relationship with all those wide receivers and that tight end. It's just going to be it could be an absolute a shit show,
Yeah.
or it could be
What do you
brilliant.
reckon? What do you reckon Arch Manning gets in this season?
No, he's going to start next year. I don't think he'll play this year unless there's injuries.
He was desperately wanted. There's some of them plays he made at the spring game. He looked really good at the spring game. I
Yeah.
did watch those highlights, but I was listening to one of, I think it might be the CBS podcast, but I can't be too sure because it was a few weeks ago. But they were talking about one of them was at the game in the media for the Texas Longhorns spring game, and he was like, "Listen, it was about an hour before kickoff. He wasn't starting." But the section where he was sat, that section was full of people just wanting to look at and talk to Arch Manning.
Mm.
That young man is a star, and he
Yeah.
is
Oh,
going
yeah.
to be.
He's going to be. And like I say, if depends how the head coach is going to run it. He could.
Yeah,
I don't see him stepping away from Ewers, and I think Ewers is definitely going to go into the draft this year. I think he has to. I think he set out 2024 because of the quarterback names that were going in this year. But I think based upon who's going to be available next year, it's likely that he could be the number 2 prospect out of that draft class. So
yeah.
I can see him going in 2025. And I think
Carson Beck.
no, behind Sanders. I think Beck is going to be one of these that he's a bit like a Drake May. He'll probably be up there, but I don't know if he'll be one of the ones that'll. I think he's better than Drake May personally, but I
Listen,
still think he'll
we
be
don't
one of
take
those.
Drake May slander in this house. Not allow it.
Not yet, anyway.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. But I think those 3 are probably the 3 big ones for next year. But I think I don't see Arch Manning playing this year, and I think it'll probably do him good to sit another year. And if they've managed to convince him to stay this year, and he's going to potentially sit, then I think next year could be the big year for him. But we'll see.
Gentlemen, very conscious of time. This has been a wonderful conversation, and it's been up until this point that I haven't actually bothered to look at
Didn't even
the time
realise.
that we've been recording for because I've been enjoying this conversation too much. But I have looked and gone, okay,
Okay.
that's a timing. So it's been tremendously fun, and I don't want to leave because I will kick myself if I leave without saying I remembered what I was going to say about high school recruiting.
Whee!
I remembered it about 20 minutes
Saved it
ago.
for later, didn't you? You were just saving it for later.
I did. I promised I would. And Gary is keeping me in check on this. It's twice now he's pulled me up, and we've got to it on the day. So one thing I did want to say about high school recruiting was Josh Allen is a great example of high school recruiting is changing and how high school I know you mentioned technology, but social media in and of itself is a massive deal. There are kids being scouted across the country because you even think, yeah, you can live in eastern Michigan, but that doesn't mean that Michigan, who are within your area, are going to 100% check out your high school or check out some of the games that or you are going to be, you might just be slightly too north of Michigan, where Michigan tend to look around and then the Michigan State tend to look around. You just slightly miss it. But what's great is your mum or dad can film you on their phones, and then you can upload it to YouTube. You can upload it to Twitter, and you can just go at Coach Sanders. Maybe you wouldn't do Coach Sanders, but you can at the coaches are on Twitter. Then most of them manage their own social media account. You can do that now. That you could. I think I remember someone talking ages ago about how you used to have to go and compile you might have to go and compile a DVD of highlights
Well,
and mail it
the
in,
old
and
tape, you had
maybe
to do the
that old
VHS
record
tape,
deal.
cut them all and
Yeah,
edit
yeah.
it back
The
together
the old
again.
the old record deal type thing where the record label manager kind of picks it up and goes, fuck it, I can't bother with that, and then launches it, and it never gets seen. It's in the bin and it's in a landfill next week. Gentlemen, it's nearly Saturday. We started recording on Friday. It's very nearly Saturday. So on that note, I am going to leave you both, and with a huge thank you to Nick as well. Nick, thank you so much for joining us. But Gary and Sam, thank you so very, very, very much for spending time with me on this Friday night and talking college football, transfer portal, NIL. Well, we didn't cover a lot about
Recruiting.
NIL, but we did
Yeah.
speak NIL a little bit, and transfer portals, and longest unbeaten run in NCAA history.
We'll remember that now.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Take it easy, boys. Have a good week.